Okay, call this to order. Good evening, everyone. First thing I want to check is Kurt online. Check and see.
The only
No.
two online are gonna be part of the state revenue share when that comes up.
Okay, thank you. Uh, First thing on the agenda after that is any declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any?
No.
Thank you. And then the people.
Well, wait a minute. Should I mention that I am on the Cedar board? Okay, so I'm gonna mention that I'm on the Cedar board.
Okay.
So there's that. But I don't make any money from it, so.
Right, I think we'll talk about it in stuff later and we'll get to that, but thank you for that. Did everyone get a chance to review the amazing detailed minutes from the 15th of April meeting? Were there any corrections or statements, changes to the minutes you made?
Somebody like it.
Yes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes from the budget committee meeting Wednesday, April 15th, 2026.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good, thank you. So now we move to the public hearing portion of our meeting. Some things I have to say explicitly here. This is a public hearing regarding state revenue sharing for the city of Dearborn fiscal year 2026 through 2027. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the budget committee to hear this matter at this time? Does any budget committee member believe they have a conflict of interest?
And just remember that the conflict of interest is, you can be a member of an organization, you can participate in organizations. It's just that you cannot financially benefit from any decision, which would then make it a conflict of interest. So you were going to make it clear. Thank you.
Conflicts of interest. Is there any additional correspondence we've received? I think as of yesterday, we had nothing.
No additional other than I did distribute a letter, that's two letters, but from the same person at the last meeting. And I will make sure that it just goes into the public hearing, but nothing beyond those letters you've already seen.
Okay, next we will have public testimony. We'll have presentation by proponents and opponents and any additional questions or rebuttals. So first of all, are there any presentations by proponents for anything?
I think we have two online and two organizations out there. You wanna get started?
Oh, sure.
One moment.
Yeah.
Was there any sign in or anything that
No.
needed to be done for that? Okay,
No.
thank you.
My name's Elizabeth Roberts. I'm a member of Trails End Art Association. And is there anybody here that is not familiar with? We're right across the street from you. We are hosting our 75th annual judge show this year. So I hope there are people here that might be interested. I'm here representing the club because I submitted an entry for a grant consideration. So I'm hoping there's a little money in your budget. We're hoping to upgrade our basics. We are in need of a sink, a stainless steel sink that's suitable for those with disabilities to use. And also, depending how much money we get this year, we would like to make all of our tables and chairs accessible for handicap and hopefully for children. We're starting to offer, if we can get enough, support, we're hoping to offer classes for children also.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? I don't know how detailed you want me to be.
Well, my daughter is a high schooler and she's taken several classes there, so.
Oh, great.
She's a little bigger than a little one, but. she
Well,
really likes it.
encourage her to submit something for the show in August. It's free for high school and younger. So we're really trying to encourage young people because a lot of us in the club are getting older. And it's great to have fresh ideas and artists coming in.
Elizabeth, I don't know, how familiar are with this actual budget that was spent in the year?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
On the form, it said, it had two different amounts. One was less than 500, one was 500, and I just checked the box that said available funds because I know there was a statement put out that the funds are less this year than, no surprise there with what's going on nowadays, so.
I was just wondering, there was a line item for under income for City of Gearhart grant. This is, of course, I mean, this is fiscal year this year. You hope and expect. I thought it was for last year. I was wondering what did it show 500 that was worth last year. I guess it must be because this is for your upcoming, this is the year we're in. Looks like it.
Maybe.
He's asking about this budget attached. Was this for last year or this upcoming?
It says fiscal year 2026, so that's probably why it doesn't look really.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Answer my own question.
Do you know how much the sink modification or remodel will be approximately?
Well, I think it's close to 500 because it has to be adjustable for a wheelchair. Actually, and with the plumbing, it's actually gonna be more than that. We're just, we just get by on, we all volunteer our time and we all chip in for lots of things. So any amounts that we can get, we just hope to eventually get that replaced.
Do you know what the artist payments, what that is? There's a line item for under expenses for artist payments.
Oh, gosh, I wish I had a copy of that. I didn't know. Probably, if one of the artists make a sale, then, the association keeps 15% and then the artist gets the rest of the money. So I don't know if that's what that is. If I had this, I could have, looked at it ahead of time. And then, sorry, I'm not prepared.
It's okay, I think
I think we've got an answer with them. Yeah.
What line was it you were looking at? Because you were going into it.
It is the 17,500,001.
Oh, okay, so that, yeah, so for that amount, that would have been all the sales for the whole year, that the artist had. So the association would have kept 15% and paid out the rest, so I'm sure that's probably what that is.
So that would be the expense of the income of 001 up top, right?
Right, and then there's artist payments down below, that's for 17,500.
Yes.
Right, and then the artist sales for 22,000 bucks, okay.
I really apologize. If I would have realized, I would have had our treasurer come. I'm so sorry.
No, we're just trying to, no, there's nothing wrong. We're just trying to figure out, because we're not familiar with your format. So you have done nothing wrong.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
So I am Jennifer Harrigus, and I just stepped into the role of being the interim president of the St. Vincent de Paul food pantry that's located in Gerhart, just at North Coast Plaza, right across the street, actually 3 minutes from. And I'm learning everything. I just started this April 1st, where I was really handed over all of the tasks and trying to get the numbers. And we have just felt so fortunate by the past when I've kind of gone over how much you've generously given back to the community with your financial support. And all of our volunteers were up to about 40, give or take. It just kind of depends. But we all volunteer our time. And that's just clock time on how much we actually serve the clients in our area right here. So all of your funds graciously go back to supporting the community. As you know, the SNAP benefits have dramatically been decreased. So a lot of people have been affected by this. I just looked up the report from the Oregon Human Department. And I think it was, it was about 22,000 or 29,000 in the state of Oregon were being affected by SNAP benefits, which truly impacts our community here as we've seen our needs increase dramatically. Also, something that is truly affected by us is our fuel costs. Everybody here has been affected by that, but we take a truck and we have to maintain this in order to get our donations from our local services we get from, but we also have to purchase our food too. And so we do require, I know I checked off the little box for it as much as you could give us. And it's just mainly to help make up for some of that deficit that we're seeing as our numbers increase with families and clients that we're serving, and then also the food and fuel costs that we're actually being forced to look at. Any questions? If I can answer them, I'll find out if they're not.
Do the recipients have to be a member of the St. Vincent de Paul?
Absolutely not. So, and nor did the volunteers. So they, the volunteers do not have to be per se a member or Catholic, because it is a Catholic community. So we have volunteers who've actually been clients and they came back and they've returned to volunteer with us too, which just makes your heart kind of grow a little bit. And then we also have people who, in order to be on the board and to run and have the support of St. Vincent de Paul, you do have to be Catholic for that. So we do have that on board, and I just so happen to be able to check that part and to be able to say you're president. So that was good to be able to step. It's great to not have that discrimination, if you want to say that, as in, we don't believe in discriminating against any race, gender, sex, age, anything. So that I really feel strongly about that. It's just a great organization to see that we can provide for food and security just locally, direct right here. It's amazing. I encourage anyone of you to come along.
So am I reading this correctly? Your income, it looks like for 2025 to 2026 has gone down from 44,000 and some change to 39,000.
So when I kind of request that too, we had a major repair We had a leak and, under our contract with our lease, we had to incur that cost.
Okay.
So we're hoping, and we're, really fortunate enough to keep maintaining everything, that we hope that we won't have to incur something like that. And then we also had to purchase, so you see that will additional increase from last year, and we're hoping that it won't have to continue, is that we had to purchase a heater and then also a freezer. So we currently have, how many freezer spaces do we have?
We have, 8 to 10 freezers.
And we have refrigerators too that we can actually store. And then we have room where we can store non-perishable foods, like in a kind of shop, you should say that, kind of shelf.
Yeah, open shelf.
Yeah, open shelf stuff.
So, again, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like your total income is 67,000, but you are expecting your expenses to be 67,600, so you're 600 in the hole. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have,
This
we have
is,
some elderly donors that have donated, that actually have been volunteers. And they're up in their 80s and 90s. And they, even after they stop volunteering, they continue to donate. And we've lost some.
right. Yeah. So it's humbling to ask for money at times and solicit, but we appreciate you taking the time to just even consider us, and of course, be able to call us neighbors too. Really makes an impact.
Certainly serve our community well, I think. So, thank you.
Yeah, I was at a different meeting with the food banks and feeding centers. The coordination in the North Coast is really incredible. So
Yeah.
thank you for your work there.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Moving on, anyone else? I think you better not.
Online.
So, Ellie from the North Coast Food Bank, would you like to go next?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So I am with the North Coast Food Web. We are an online farmers market, and we are a web of food, sort of found within 100 miles of Astoria, sourced from producers and farmers, typically very small. And we are requesting funds for our free food box program. In the free food box program, we give out 15 boxes a week to anybody who identifies as being food insecure. And we pay full price for the food from the farmers and producers to do this. And so it's not a profitable service, but it does mean that the money donated to us for this program passes through the producers and the farmers, as well as the people in need's hands. So we like to say it's feeding two birds with one seed. But it is a fantastic program that needs constant support because we are giving away food and supporting farmers and producers. And it's contributing to a strong and resilient local food system, which, as we know from 2020, things can go haywire very fast. It's nice to have local food. So that is why we are requesting funds to continue to build this food system locally.
Questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last, the harbor, please. I see Morgan Sheeran, but I think someone else.
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Morgan and I work for the harbor. I am the volunteer and outreach coordinator along with DSAR. I am the on-call manager for the harbor. And I believe we are asking for funds for our DSAR program. We are the only sexual assault, domestic violence nonprofit agency in the area. And we are looking to serve Clatsop County by putting survivors into hotels, providing support as far as fleeing, whether that's a bus ticket, airplane, any type of confidential shelter needs that may need to be met, any clothing, food items that also may need to be met, and paying for an advocate to be able to provide these needs 24 hours daily and 7 days a week.
Thank you. Again, any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
All right, so I think that's,
I could ask one.
yes, Aaron.
Morgan, so the funds you're asking from the city of Dearborn, you say would go directly into the Deep Start program?
Yes, that is correct.
And is that, do you have the operational budget by chance in front of you?
I do not. My manager is at a conference at the moment, so I took over this evening.
Okay. I don't see a line item in there that would direct money to that specific program.
Oh,
So-
understood. I'm not entirely sure. I just know that we were doing it as DSAR as a whole, but I wouldn't know item by item.
Okay. Do you have any idea by chance, you may not, but how much funding that particular program has earmarked for it? And what it costs to run that particular program?
In a year, I couldn't tell you, but I do know that as far as for the grant itself, I think we're looking at the max just because being a DSART myself, knowing that putting somebody in a hotel for a week when we don't have room in our confidential shelter can cost to about $1,000. On top of anything they may need, clothing, toiletries, a phone, gas cards, anything like that. It can be pretty costly, but as in a total amount, I'm not entirely sure what that adds up to by the end of the year.
Okay.
Seems like it should be within emergency services, but we don't have to break out of that.
Yeah, possibly.
Great, thank you, Morgan.
Yes.
Then we have others in your packet that people have had a chance to look at that were given previously. No other presentations for opponents? Requests? Are there any presentations by opponents? So, I think that would be it, Justine. Right. First of all, I want to thank all the presenters. Thank you guys for coming, both online and in person. Much appreciated. And you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. It won't affect how we deliberate or anything. It'll all be recorded so you can watch later. So feel free to enjoy the sunshine. Morning.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
So that would be the public hearing portion is closed, and we can move on to the public comment on the proposed budget programs and services. So that's the overall budget that we talked about on the 15th of April. And there's no one else online. I should check that. And you guys are not here for that portion. So public comment is now closed. We're taking these guys off. So now the fun part is for us, budget committee discussion on proposed programs and services. I guess we start with just the additional staff input, correct?
Right, so this year I did do a staff report just because I felt like there was a few things I specifically wanted to cover. And I always feel like if I write it down, then it's easier for people, if they happen to see documents online, that they have access to that. And then it kind of helps me focus my thoughts and kind of get out what I need to get out. It's important. So the first two things on my staff report are just a technical spreadsheet calculation thing. And I'm thankful for Eric Halpern for calling me and letting me know. This actually was something even from last year that was in the proposed column. I used a template and I had changed it in the approved and the adopted. I had not changed it in the proposed. So the first two things are just technical spreadsheet issues. And what had happened is that in State Street and the Gerhardt Road District, the formula had not gotten pulled all the way down for the totals. But I need the totals to be the totals. So I had to adjust certain line items in order to make those totals mount. So they're just technical amounts that need to be adjusted. There's no specific action that you have to take at this moment because unless you have an objection, which we can talk about now or during the budget committee discussion, they will just get approved. We'll have an amended budget and make sure that these get approved for the approved copy. Any questions about those two technical issues? The next section that I just kind of wanted to highlight was the transient lodging tax. I had a couple questions about definitions. And so I just kind of went out online and pulled some definitions, specifically of the tourism related facilities, tourism promotion, ecotourism, sustainable tourism, and responsible travel. And again, kind of the theme of this is that I do feel like it's really important that if we do increase transient lodging, the terms are real in the state of Oregon requirements for how we spend tourism related facilities or tourism promotion. How we as a city adopt those and we define them depends upon us. So when we set an ordinance or we set programs, we can define tourism as responsible travel, as sustainable tourism. We can move those words to words that meet the definition of what we want to see, and we can control those by setting boundaries. You can't have certain things, you can't do certain things. This is our objective with that money. And I think that those need to be much more in-depth, longer conversations with the public, with businesses, with the planning commission, with the public, to have their input and the businesses that it impacts. So I just put those just for general purposes because I do think that they're important to this message.
Question.
Yeah.
So the bottom line for this is it would be an ordinance or ordinances setting this in place and using language such as this to capture what it is we want to do. That's where that would all take place.
And it wouldn't have to be, I mean, I think that the ordinance can be generic, but you would want to define in the ordinance how that process is established, whether it's established like the committee makes the decision, how that tax is, and the guidelines that they are supposed to use. They're supposed to follow the comprehensive plan, they're supposed to do other things. So it depends on how detailed, but you could put it in the ordinance. Rather than a line item that says all transient lodging tax that is approved for tourism or tourism related facilities will be governed by like the planning commission. Like nothing can be spent out of there until the planning commission approves it. And then the planning commission would hopefully get input in public. And I'm not saying that that would be the way to go, but you could set a committee that does it. You could set that the council has to see all of the expenditure before they go out, that type of thing. You could have it that restrictive. A committee does it. You have a committee of 3 business people or something that decides how that money goes.
So we have choices about how this is set up in this.
Absolutely. Yes.
And our timeline for having the ordinance completed is the end of the year.
We needed the second reading approved in December. Yes. We would need it, I mean, ideally, we would have to have a special meeting. You could have a meeting on December 31st to implement it on July 1st. And the first reading needs to be in November, and then it's 30 days. And so then it would be in December would be the second reading. So it would be effective 30 days later. And then it would push it into January, which is the January deadline of when it actually gets imposed. So we would want to do all the work and kind of talk, as a staff, we've kind of talked about what that looks like, because it's going to need a lot of community input. You're just approving, as the budget committee, you're just approving that revenue source is an approved way to balance the budget. You're not approving the percentage. You're not really approving that the tax will be increased. That will be a city council decision.
Or even approving the language that I saw a shake of the head no's.
Not really, because that will be an ordinance
Yeah,
decision.
okay. Because you and I never discussed this, but that was one of my terms around tourism. When I looked at some things in the comprehensive plan, like at the very least, sort of discomfort with it.
Right.
So some things that we state we want to do and some things that sort of conflict with that.
And that kind of transitions me into another discussion, which I want to follow up on. Is there any other questions about that? Yeah.
So basically, what we're trying to do is take more money for us instead of giving it to tourist industry, basically. I mean, when the state mandates that we can only get a certain percentage. Okay, so I mean, my thought on this was, well, I mean, it doesn't make any difference whether one tourist comes into this town at 500 of them. They're still using our roads, they're still, the police department still having to do stuff, fire department still involved, every single public works, every single thing that we do in the city is basically shared with the tourist tax.
Right, and maybe maybe Gerhart chooses not to call them tourists, maybe we choose to call them visitors.
Visitors.
You know, I mean, I think it will be important for us, and we will have to meet the guidelines. They will define and have an expectation, and this new legislation will require quarterly reports where they never had reports before, that you're reporting what you're doing with the money. And so we will have to think about and justify, that's why setting up a plan in advance, like kind of like you said, like these are the definitions, these are the way we see tourism. You can't tell us how we see our visitors. You know, we get to decide that, but it will have to fit in the structure that the state has set.
But that's just basically, I mean, that just puts more of a burden on the city staff, which then should be paid for by tourist dollars.
Some people have been creative and they do pay communication people, but there will be an outcome that there's an expectation that somehow that's encouraging people to come to Gerhart. So the state will have an expectation.
People already get encouraged to come to Gerhart vis-a-vis the golf course, trails.
The 1,000 pictures that are posted on Facebook.
I've never understood why the coast needs to promote tourism. It's just like, going to the mountains. Right? I mean, there may be some, the Umpqua Valley, the winery down there and everything like that. or down in Medford or whatever it happens to be, nobody has to encourage people to come to the coast.
But there are people who say we should encourage them to come to Cannon Beach or Seaside or here or Warrenton.
Well, Cannon Beach is, they've made their own nest, okay? They got exactly what they wanted. Now, they're a couple runneth over. So, I mean, people from the valley are gonna flock to the coast during hot weather up there. We don't need to spend money on encourage tourists down the coast. That's all in my opinion. But if they're gonna come here, we want more of their money.
But if we want the tax money, then we have to encourage them to come.
The money comes with a string.
Well, that's,
That's the price we pay for getting
I
the
think
tax.
we are lucky to have Uriel Stern Hammond as our attorneys currently. They've written guidebooks for the League of Oregon Cities, for cities on how to do this. They're very much up on it, and we'll definitely be leaning on them to make sure we do this correctly.
And I really feel like we need to be leaders in redefining the term tourism and what that looks like in our city. I feel like that's really important, and if we do not stand by that, then we jeopardize our small rural community.
Well, especially to make it consistent with our comprehensive plan.
Yes, right, and that's really important, and I think that that's where all the legwork has to go in to make sure, because we live in a city that doesn't have a public septic, sewer system. We have septic tanks, which automatically, and limited property, we're really not that big of a city. We're not really looking or have the ability to accept a lot of large hotels. That's not something that's necessarily ever going to necessarily look here unless there's some pretty dynamic changes. So I feel like putting the budget together and sitting around this table, we are not asking to increase the number of, at this point, increase the number of people coming in. We're asking to increase the amount they have to pay to be here. At this point.
We're asking for a bigger percentage.
We are.
Well, if there are empty hotel rooms, we want to encourage the hotel rooms to be full too.
Sure, well, that could be the excellence, plus and minus to that.
Because we do have a comprehensive plan here, correct me if I'm wrong, to support the businesses that are here, right? The existing.
Yeah, this is what our comp plan says under commercial development policies. The city will prevent the city from becoming a tourist destination. To achieve this policy, the city, through its land use designations, shall seek to accommodate only a limited level of tourist development. So it doesn't say no tourist development, it says control it, like you said, to what is acceptable and appropriate for your resources that you have, law enforcement you have, the emergency services, septic, all of those types of things. And so what we need to do is decide what's acceptable. We have a finite number of beds. So, even if we wanted to, we're not going to, we can't increase the C1, we can't increase the C, it's already designated how much space we have. We have a finite number of beds, but do we want to encourage more people to visit our restaurants? Now, the state defines a tourist as somebody who travels more than, I think it's 50 or 51 miles. But what it doesn't say is that round trip, because if it's 50 miles round trip, you're talking on the far side of Astoria. Maybe from Nehalem, right? But we don't necessarily have to adopt their definition of tourism as long as whatever we do with that money meets what they describe as promoting tourism. Exactly, agreed. So we define tourism and then we live by the rules, and that way we get to keep our 50%. And then we're appropriately using the other 50% that we're mandated to spend on supporting tourism. Right. We find a way that it works with our comp plan. And I think we can do that, but I think we do need legal advice on it.
Yes.
But.
Well,
I'm sorry, but the only way it affects our revenue directly is if they spend the night. It's not just
Well,
coming as a day tripper to walk the Ridge Pass and have dinner and
right,
leave.
that's,
I'm sorry. I mean, that's good.
no, that's true and that's not true. I mean, if we have 10 rooms that are being rented out and we're renting out 10 rooms and only getting $5 per room versus renting out 10 rooms and getting $10 per room.
Right.
We're not increasing the number of beds, but we are increasing our income.
Right.
And of that additional $5, $250 goes to the city, $250 has to go back into what our, tourism, the type of tourism that we decide is acceptable, whether it's day trippers coming in, or whatever. So let's say we wanted to take that money and somehow support our restaurants down here in the C1, or like you suggested, we wanted to support art walks or some type of something that would encourage. That would be something I think, I agree, the community would need to discuss and decide what are we gonna consider tourism, and the mayor had some good points when we talked about this last time also.
And so, in the new House bill, there is the new option now that has been added, the resiliency grants for small businesses in the restaurant and lodging industry. So that has been added. It was not an option before. And so now it does potentially open up for some of the things like Dana was talking about. Maybe there isn't going to be another opportunity to help our local businesses. And so that kind of leads me to my next topic, which I'm going to change a little bit. So the account description name modification in the budget document. So I thought about this for the last few days. I met with Carl at on this week to go over the agenda, just so we can talk about it so that we can be prepared for today. And just in that conversation, we were just talking about planning commission, the comp plan. And after he left, I was thinking about it and I thought, we was going to talk about make a recommendation to, by consensus, to change promoting Gerhardt instead of business incentives because for more flexibility. And after talking to him, I want to renege on that again because I think promoting Gerhardt is exactly what we wouldn't want to do in the comp plan. I thought about it and I kind of just did some definition things because the comp plan does say prevent tourist destination, but it also says ensure healthy and stable economy in Gerhardt through all available sources.
And maintain a commercial zone in the center of the city that provides for the needs of residents.
Right.
And there's no way that we can do that without, allowing folks from out of town to come visit them because there's just simply not enough of us to keep them going.
Agreed. So I thought of other words, other line descriptions that we could use that maybe might better suit that. So things like promoting business, supporting business, enhancing business, or maybe nurturing businesses, and every one of those words have different meanings, right? So I looked up promoting business, encouraging growth and development or popularity is promoting, supporting, furnishing assistance, encouragement, or structural strength acting as a foundation to uphold. Enhancing means intensity, increasing, further improvement, the quality, value, or extent of. Nurturing, helping or encouraging the development of. So I think that we should get rid of promoting Gerhardt. I'm reneging on my recommendation.
I think that we need to put a placeholder in here for sure, but I really do think that we need a legal recommendation on this.
Agreed. And
that's my perspective.
And we can change it easily later, but we do need to put a line and a description in there, but promoting Gerhardt is not the line.
Yeah, that was Councilor Gold, you read line 2 of the goals, and number 7 was the city will limit the number of business uses in the C1 zone so that the zone does not become a destination for tourists.
So we've already limited the number of businesses because there's no more room. We've already said we're not going to increase the level down there, so we've already met the intention of that.
Right.
I think we're in agreement on that, our comp plan doesn't say no tourism, it just says no more tourism. And so we can still promote our tourists, our businesses that depend on tourists at the level that our comp plan says is acceptable, and it also serves our needs in a win-win without increasing it.
And if we
And
can
that would meet the
support and help them in some way in the months of January and February, maybe, that's something that we decide to do. And we can encourage, Astoria residents, Seaside residents to come to our local businesses during that time. Then they're still there in the summer when we have 4th of July. They're still there 12 months later because they cannot
As
serve.
opposed to opening something new.
Exactly, like, in January, we might not be able to serve enough ice cream or be open enough days in order to do something, but in, the months of May through August, you might have plenty of people there in order to support it. So again, I think it's looking at it in a different approach. So
You can also use that money to, if you come up with let's say hypothetically, we said we want to, one of our other goals, and I don't have the whole comp plan for me, but one of our other goals is to encourage, or I don't know if it's encourage ecotourism, but support ecotourism, that we are gonna, the people here in this community care very much about the Reach Path and about our beach, and those are things that people wanna come walk. So if we found that there was something we needed to maintain those or to improve those, you can use the money for that. You could say, hey, for the next 2 years, we're gonna set aside that money to go into a bathroom, or I'm just saying, or signs or whatever. We could divert that money temporarily, and then in 2 years, we would then have to say, okay, we fulfilled that goal. What is our next goal? And so a group like this would have to make a determination going on.
right, I agree. And I think go ahead, Eric.
I just wanted to reinforce something that Paulina said a moment ago. I don't know how direct we can be about this, but we only benefit if they stay overnight, we pay the lodging tax. If we're encouraging people to come walk on the beach for a day, or go clamming for a day, or whatever they do to go to Trails End for a day, but don't stay overnight, we haven't gained anything. So we have to just keep that part in mind.
Well, there's-
The lodging tax.
But historically, when the comp plan was written, everything north of 10th Street was out of the city limits. So it wasn't until Bowman wanted a 3rd police officer that Maltman said to him, if you can find a revenue source, then we can support a 3rd police officer. So that's when they annexed Attica West, and then the golf course, and then everything on up, basically to 13th Street. Okay? And so that was where basically all of the hotel rooms. Originally, they were out of the city. Now we get them, okay? But the C1, basically was written to maintain our small downtown core area for, the benefit of the residents. There isn't anything that says that we can't tell the minimums, we're gonna take your money and use it for, for what we want to do. And, I think we should have, to be honest with you.
Well, if they're paying the tax, then it's determined what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the $30, the overnight people and everything like that are using the streets, they're coming down here. Hopefully, they're gonna support the downtown businesses as well as walking the beach or Ridge Path, whatever it is.
Sure.
And the more people, if they fill those rooms up for 300 days a year,
Right. That's good.
But so
kudos to us.
nothing in the statute requires that we increase people utilizing our beds. Nothing requires that we promote the beds. We're just saying, if we have 10 beds and we are currently getting charging them $5 tax on it, we would now like to charge them, and this is again, I'm just throwing out numbers. Now we would like to charge them $10 for the same number of beds. Before you come to visit McMiniman's, now you're not gonna pay $5 in tax, now you're each gonna pay $10. And then the city is going to get the additional $5. That additional $5 has to be split. 50% can go to city's needs because they recognize that we will have additional infrastructure needs. And then the other 50% has to be put into promoting tourism, but not necessarily promoting people to be in those beds, promoting tourism.
But my
In
point
by
is,
definition.
Or visitors.
but my point is, seems to me we would want to promote them staying in the other vacant beds.
Yeah,
Because so we could get
yeah.
more of the tax money, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
Because if we're only encouraging people to come for the day,
Right, no,
use
I
our
get it.
beach,
Right.
Go to our art center, to walk on Ridge Path, and we don't encourage them to stay overnight, we've only increased the traffic, but we haven't increased our income.
Right.
Well, and I think you brought up a good idea last time, and I like it, and it's something I thought about too, is
Help those.
right, like when my husband and I went to McMinimum's and on the table, there's 8 different things that they're doing throughout the state of Oregon. They're having a bicycle right here, and they're having a outdoor barbecue in Gresham, and all sitting on my table while I'm sitting there, and we're talking about, oh, well, aren't we gonna be here or there, and would that be we might be able to do that. We want the same thing when they're going to the Bend. They want to see Booties Fest, right? They have the same number of beds. They've always had the same number of beds, but maybe encouraging them through an incentive or through a resiliency grant to say, hey, you're already advertising. We know that this is going to cost you additional money in tax. If you can prove to us you're, supporting people to come here to stay in your rooms, we'll give you $5,000, right? I mean, that's an option. And I think you mentioned something about incentives for those
Right.
people for promoting.
Right.
And
They're launching.
right. So, I mean, I don't think that that's a bad idea. And I think that in the short term, that I even might be something that eases the burden for them to kind of go along with, like Dana said, we don't want to be the most expensive place on the coast. So if they could somehow get money back, it might be less.
Well, it helps them to have, but it helps them to have restaurants down here that are successful, because you don't want to go stay in a place where you have no place to go, where you have to drive, 20 minutes. So I think that kind of resolves itself to some extent.
Are we gonna do something for the 3 primary drivers, which is probably Millennials, New York by the Sea and Drift Haven, and have them directly involved? Provide them some incentive for doing this to reduce the burden of the tax for them and help us solve the whole tourism thing. Because they're now, it's a joint effort to promote.
I don't even know if we could put it into the bike lane out here on the 101 that's part of the ODOT plan. I mean, there's all kinds of things, and I don't think we are supposed to determine that tonight. I think we're supposed to determine whether we think the city should pursue that money or make the recommendation to get the attorneys involved and tell us how to do it.
Correct. But we do need to come up with an item description line.
I was going to ask you to summarize
It can be-
what you would like that to
Yes,
say. Or
it can be
you would propose.
something simple. I don't know if we just want to use something like supporting your heart or enhancing your heart, or if we specifically want the word business in there. I think that we need to get rid of promoting though and pick a different word like supporting, enhancing, nurturing. And whether or not we want to leave it really broad and just say nurturing your heart or supporting your heart or enhancing your heart, or whether we specifically want to put the word business in there, it does not lock us into anything. All it does is appropriate money for us to spend. And when we end up going to put this together, we can change this line item. But how we present this, when people pull this out tomorrow, we're gonna want something in there.
Supporting deer.
It's broad.
Supporting, yeah.
I like the word supporting. I put supporting local business, but I don't need to have the word business. I like enhancing too.
I like supporting better than enhancing. Enhancing feels like it might be making the flowers.
Yeah,
prettier
or
something.
increasing, yeah.
Enhancing has the increasing, which is maybe not our
Right.
content.
So
I think the word supporting
better.
is really positive.
And I'm not even sure that for the purposes tonight, that we even have to do that. Why can't we just say, TLT tax and then the, city's portion and then, obligated funds or something like that? And then work out the,
So that later.
Is that
I'll just
something
call
we
it
can
TLT distribution practically.
there you go, yeah.
The only-
Obligated distribution
And we can do that. The only thing I would say is that all of this is TLT distribution. And I think that if we give them some idea of where we're headed, supporting Deer Heart might be a better way for.
it'll probably mean this calls for you.
It might be if somebody asks, if somebody happened to ask you, you could throw out ideas that we're having for supporting Deer Heart. I mean, I want to believe that it could be hiring extra police or extra people on 4th of July. That somehow if we could find somebody who would be willing to be an enforcement, a parking person, that would be something we might be able to do with the money.
But for now, eligible TLT uses.
What did you say?
Eligible TLT uses.
I like it.
Doesn't say tourism, it doesn't say promotion.
Yeah.
Railway ties, so
And then-
it's identifiable in some of those.
Yeah, and that way, the first time we introduce it to the public, we can explain where we're going without the assumptions. I was looking and trying to see what Seaside, what they've listed theirs under, but I can't find it real quick, so.
Well, and a lot of them have hired personnel, so they'll have like a 0.5 person that does like restrooms during busy times. So you'll see the personnel breakdowns. It doesn't say exactly what it is, but you'll see they'll have a staffing person in there. And I mean, those are all options for us as we go down the road and we learn what we can and can't use it for. So are we moving with eligible TLT uses? That seems great. By consensus, we're moving to that. Okay, we will change that line item.
Should we put in eligible uses?
I just put a little thing in there for you for the TLT revenue breakdown, since Eric had asked. Like I said, I see the individual checks and the individual deposits, so I look at this differently than, in a group. So we have 62 houses that produce 39%. And this is tracked on a calendar year, but in a 12-month period, it's all the same amount of money. So 39% is about $224,000. The 4 condos, 2% is about $12,000. And then the hotel, motel, condotels, which is an actual word, Chad and I looked it up, which is a condominium complex that runs like hotels, so you can own it, but there's a reservation person there that checks in and checks out, so people really think they're kind of at a hotel, even though it's a condominium complex.
Is that?
Attica West.
That's Deer Heart by the Sea. Yeah,
That's Attica West.
and so six businesses bring in 58%, which is about $335,000. So 6 businesses. Now, remember those 6 businesses, Deer Heart by the Sea, I don't know, they might have 200 rooms.
Can you give me that number again?
335K for 6 businesses.
This is their current TLT
This is actual data from calendar year last year.
of the TLT.
Yes, actually taken in by the city.
This brings up part of the discussion that we haven't had, which is the people who have short-term rentals are gonna be bringing in more money. Right?
In theory.
And would we want to be in conversation with them?
Well, I think everybody who pays TLC should be included. Now, whether or not they choose to participate, I don't know, because many of them have vacation rentals, like Vacasa runs them, or Airbnb, or, you know, other organizations, so a lot of the owners don't even manage their properties, but they absolutely, I think that they should be part of the conversation, it will impact them too.
Justine and I have had some discussions about how to move forward with this. This is step one, and then when to get some folks involved so that we can be open and transparent as to what's coming down and give people the opportunity to speak. So once we get this through the budget, then we'll move into adopting that budget through the city council, and at that time we'll start having conversation and getting them involved in the process for us to develop the ordinance that would be needed to establish this tax.
I was surprised that the houses were close to 40% built. It was that much, because it seemed like more than we anticipated at last meeting, so that's good.
Some of them have one rental. No, they only rent, the ordinance requires them to rent at least once, and so they will have one rental a year, one night.
One night?
Just to make sure that their
So
permit
they'll have
remains current.
$36 in tax for the whole year.
So
They also have paid $600 for the year. And they have to pay that.
For the permit fee.
Now, is that transferable?
It's not transferable if they sell the property, it's only transferable is at the time of the permit, they had, like multiple meetings, like it was a trust
Family.
or a family member that was like death.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word,
But it's,
inheritance.
yeah,
It's just standing there.
there are a few ways that they can be passed, but selling never.
Yeah, we made a decision on that last year and the year before.
It's not
It's been in place from the beginning.
Well, we had a situation a year and a half ago where we had like 5 owners, and what they were wanting to do was transfer their ownership and everybody else stays, and then they eventually, what you could end up with is your original 5 owners are completely gone, and it's a completely new group of 5 owners. And I think I can't remember the exact circumstances, but I remember we said no, because that could mean perpetually, doing it, and that wasn't the intent.
So again, tonight, this whole process of looking at the TLT and approving this budget, it's simply an acknowledgement from the budget committee that this is the way that city staff are going to proceed forward in order to have a balanced budget next year. And that we do still have to go through the city council process. We still have to go through, public hearings. We still have to go through readings. I think as much involvement that we get with the businesses to hear what they have to say. And the percentage is not even defined at this point. We've put 15% in to balance the budget, but it doesn't have to be 15% when the ordinance is at 20. It could be lower than that.
That's total.
Right.
And that's not starting until the spring of next
January 1. Right.
Okay, but if, let's say that we were able to fast track this, I do believe that I read that it could be effective as early as June 1st. We could, if we were.
You can implement it, you just can't get the revenue can't go into effect until January 1.
Okay.
So you can implement the ordinance anytime you want, it's just you can't collect any additional funds
Per
until.
state law.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we're on top of it at this point.
Yeah, we're out ahead of it.
And her plan is a good one in regards to what the state is saying would be legal, or just, how we have to do it legally. So.
Okay.
The rest of the wrestling.
We don't have any other ideas on the table, do we, for balancing the budget besides this?
Nothing that's not painful.
I mean, we all seem to agree that this seems like a good idea, but this so far is the only idea we've been discussing.
Well, I mean, you can do options like local levy options where you can go to the voters and ask them to support or tax.
That seems like a winner.
It's
We can do an empty home fee.
And do a utility fee if it's defined. And those are things that we may have to consider, but this is a good start. Closes the budget gap.
Yeah.
And next year it will do that plus some more, depending on how we handle it. And we're still gonna have to have some discussions with the folks about Gerhard about some other funding moving forward if we continue on this path.
What's a utility fee?
It's where you put it on the water utility meter. And there's an additional $5 fee per month or 2 months that goes for a specific purpose as defined by the city council. Yeah. Changing
Home
your,
fees, what it sounds like if you're not a full-time resident.
Warrenton just did.
I heard about it about a year ago sit on the housing task force for the city council, and we had a presentation because Vancouver, BC was a planner who helped Vancouver, BC do that because several years ago, you went into Vancouver, they've got all these high rises that are dark because nobody's in them. And it took up the whole downtown where people lived. And that was how they solved that.
Well, and Seaside's looking at it right now. There's been a couple of articles in the newspaper about empty home tax, that's what we're calling it.
A lot of communities use levies, which is for a short period of time, 5 years. And usually, or communities buy into those because there's an end and there's a responsible use.
That's what the school's doing, right?
But raising
This is
taxes
their 20th year.
is almost impossible. It's never really been done in Oregon where you have your permanent tax and when we go to the voters and say we'd like to go from $1 to $2. That's permanent tax and they never get what it is. So we got some other ideas and things we need to talk about, but this is a good start.
Well, I know last year at this time, we talked about putting together a committee just to explore revenue sources on this. And I'm one that if you're gonna ask me to pay more, I'm gonna ask you, did you leave any money on the table and what other, have you exhausted every other, are you, every city I've ever lived in, if you want to do a rental, not a short-term rental, but any kind of rental, you had to have a business license. And I know we've had a couple of problems with rental homes here in town that are not being run to code, that would help us identify where they are and whether they're rental, and you could still get a little bit of a fee. And I'm not saying that's not someone's problem, but so you have this money. And then you look at your all system development fees, and that's not all that much money, but you put it together with that, and now we're starting to go a little bit more. So I think we look at this as a holistic. I think we put together a committee and that we really do a deep dive into this, and I think we need to do it starting soon.
I asked a question about the revenue sharing. I was just kind of reading the back of the staff report, and I think I'm troubled a little bit by not having a line item next year that would allow us, if we want to partner, say with Trails End or
Well, I think,
St. Vincent or Cedar.
but I think what would happen, Alina, honestly, is you would take the state revenue share budget, you would take the budget, number 45, you would look at it in the budget, and all the expenditures would move to non-departmental. Just as they are. You could still have the grants, you'd still have celebration, the line items would stay the same, they would just move to the general fund under non-departmental category. Same line
And
items.
the non-departmental could be anything that we define.
We have that already in there,
Yeah.
and some of those items we've already moved over to state revenue share, like the muppets and we would just move all of that back and put it in non-departmental. It's just that now the revenue goes into the general fund. So the grants wouldn't be necessarily tied to the state revenue share. It would be like, for some reason, if TLT, this works out and we end up getting $300,000 more, it might be that we're back to being able to say, we can give $15,000 this year. We're just not sweating bullets because the state changed the PSU formula and now we don't have enough money to give it because we were here and now we're here and we were locked into the state revenue share and we don't have the money to pay it. Now it lumps in and it doesn't become this weird tie thing. But they would say, my intent would be to take every single thing that exists there and just move it straight into the non-departmental budget in the general fund.
So would a process similar?
Same exact
process.
It could be the exact same process, yes. And other cities have put, like Astoria has put specific grants tied, which they consider to promoting your heart. They have put those in the TLT, state mandated. And that's something that a committee could just, they might want to give some kind of grant, like, does North Coast Land Conservancy want to do bird watching, or do they want to do something in your heart? And this is an opportunity for them to maybe buy shirts or buy nets to, catch frogs or something, that they can come and ask for that. And then that can be TLT money, but it wouldn't be, we would move them over to non-departmental. And they would have a line item just like they do now. Okay, yes.
Are we in the part of the agenda where we're having general discussion?
Oh, we can move there.
Oh, I didn't know.
The only, we had kind of moved to the state revenue sharing section of my staff report. I don't necessarily feel the need to read it since you had access to it unless you have specific questions. It's kind of things we've talked about. My only thing would be that we decide, at least by consensus, that I can move the state revenue share over to the general fund. So that when you see the budget the next time for the 2007, 2008 fiscal year, the state revenue share will be a revenue line on the revenue page, and all the expenditures will be moved into the non-departmental.
So you need a motion right now?
Not a motion, just by consensus that we decide that that's okay for me to do that. Okay.
I consent.
I consent.
Okay.
And if we don't like it, we can move it back, but
No problem.
I think it's better.
It makes it easier.
And then the other thing is just to kind of transition, to clarify, to help, just kind of talk about, the budget officer proposed $4,000 to go to the state revenue share grants. Does anybody, do you agree with that, or would you like to talk about changing that dollar amount? And we can change it while we're doing it too. I just, by consensus, maybe we could just start with the 4,000 and then talk about. It's not permanent at that point. It's just a starting point. When we put it up on the screen, we have it in there, and maybe.
Then we can dynamically adjust it.
Yes, yes.
So I consent.
Okay, good. And then we can transition into budget
Well,
committee discussion.
I need this final motion right at the bottom.
Not until the end.
No.
Yeah, that's just the help.
Got it.
Okay. The one thing I want to say that I didn't have in my staff report that I wanted to add is that I did have a budget committee member call and ask me about what it was that I felt like the city, what I would ideally like to see the goal of the reserve amount. And so having a conversation with this person, they were looking at the revenue and expenditures report that I had handed out, and they were specifically looking at the last page of that document. So this document, they were specifically interested in this back page. They were specifically interested in the revenues minus the expenditures, what the net income was, which they see that, which is accurate, is, you know, at this moment, this is how much money we had at the bank, which is true. And so they were asking me, what do you want to see? This doesn't look like we're in trouble. We have $2.6 million. What do you think that number should be?
Just hang on.
Yeah.
Was that part of our package?
It was.
Yeah, I'm looking for the same document.
I don't think I ever
Is
saw
that
that.
for a document? Yeah, I must.
Yeah, it came in the big
There's that.
It didn't come in this one, it was last.
the old one.
Yeah, right. I don't think I've ever seen that.
And it was just a guidance document.
It was right here, I wrote 9 month toes on it, when we had the last.
I
meeting.
remember seeing it, but for whatever reason, I just am not finding it right now. Of course, the harder you look for something, the harder it finds.
You got it? Okay.
Maybe one more page. Yeah, it was on the bottom. So.
Oh, you got it? Yes,
Okay,
I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so this was just, it wasn't relevant to the current budget other than just a supporting document, but this budget committee member called and said, oh, well, we have $2.9 million. I feel like that seems like we're adequate, we're not poor, this doesn't mean that we're in red. And that's accurate, it doesn't mean that we're in red, but when I look at this document, I never look at this document as one document. Each one of these are vitally important funds and vitally different. That's why they're presented in the budget that way. So I look at the general fund, I look at the expenditures, which is the 1.9 million, and I look at the revenues for that fund. Not as a whole, because the reserve funds are in there and we don't spend those, right? So it's like they need to be in there. It's the ones that we pay on a daily basis, like am I going to be able to pay the power bill because the general fund revenues exceed the expenditures. So I look at each one independently. And so I told them, I don't know if I can have like the dream number for you, but I'm just gonna give you just a brief description of what I felt like I looked for. So for me, the most important place in the whole world is the general fund, because it's mainly where we pay most of the people and most of the operating expenses come from. It's where we pay our light bill, it's where we pay our gas, it's really the majority of our general operating budget. This is my cash flow, so every month I keep a cash flow of what I think our revenues is and what our expenditures are, and then I put the actuals in, hoping that at the end, we're going to be positive. So I try to keep this going. So ideally, what I look for and my goal would be is that the general fund would be 3 months operating expense. That's what I would like to see. So 3 months operating expense of the general fund would be about 540,000. If you look at page 1 of the budget and look at the beginning fund balance, it's 207,000. So 207 versus 500. The auditors would like to see 6 months.
Yeah, see, I was gonna say, they always say they have 6 months.
Yeah, they think, you know, if we wanted a outstanding bond rating, if something bad happened, they would say they would want to say 6 months, which would be like $1 million. Then if we strive for our goal, which really my goal is, please let us have 10%. Let's have a little bit of extra, then it would be 216,000. And we put I'm thinking we're gonna be at 207. So that's where we wanna be. But that means that people in their regular budget have to not spend all of their money. So 10% is our goal. Ideally, I would love to see 3 months. But ultimately, the auditors and Standard & Poor would like to see 6 months. That would be in the general fund, and that would be in the operating fund. Same kind of thing. I'd like to see 3 months. We had a water consultant come and help us. He said he would like to see 3 months. Auditors would like to see 6 months, and Standard & Poor's would like to see that we have 6 months. The actual reserve funds, so like the water reserve, the police car reserve, the fire apparatus, those are bonus funds, and they show, growth, and they show, good stewardship. But there's no requirement. The higher they are, the higher the bond rating is, but there's no requirement that they have to be at a certain level. So I don't necessarily look at those as like a priority, except the departments would argue, because if they need a police car every 5 years and we're only putting $3,500 in there because that's the only extra money we have, they're not going to get a police car for a lot of years. Because $3,500 is gonna take a lot of years in order to be able to buy.
Each one of those reserve accounts are set up by an ordinance to be specifically spent in a certain way by the city council. And so we can't just spend the money without going to the council first. We go with a request and say that it fits between that ordinance that you had originally set it up. Your heart been unique in the past on having these reserve accounts. Many cities do not. So when we went to go buy a police car, we could pay in cash rather than having to go for a levy or a tax rate increase. And in the past, Deer Heart's reserve accounts were in pretty good shape. Every 3 years, we could buy a new police car. Every 5 to 10 years, we could buy a new fire truck. Well, we haven't been able to put the money into those reserve accounts, but yet we've been spending it because we've needed to. Just a little background.
Well, and it's the only way that you can actually take a surplus and distribute it into the reserve funds.
Which is fiscally responsible for a city to do. And we've been in a good shape of that up until recently.
So that was kind of a long answer to her question, because it was important to me, because ending fund balances, which are beginning fund balances, matter. Because they're what support, and if you have a zero balance moving forward, you run the risk of being negative, and we can't afford that. So that was kind of, I don't look at it as that back number, it's the number, because that number includes all the reserve funds. I look at each one of those funds independently with their revenues and their expenditures, and some of them have a lot of transactions, and those are the ones I focus on. And the water reserve, this was a graph that he had given us for the consultant. This is where we were when we hired the consultant. We did a transfer to bring us up to here, and we're right here right now. And the water reserve, I think we're carrying forward, I wrote it down. We put it on page 16 of the budget, the beginning fund balance, we're gonna carry over 205. And he says in 2026, we should be at 206. So we're exactly where he says we should be with rate increases, because we were so low that we went up, and then we knew we were gonna drop down and move back up with rate increases and all of the things that we're doing to try to improve that. So we're right on target of where we should be. We don't have 3 months, but we're getting closer than the general.
Well, Justin, this discussion we've just had is very much what I've been thinking about, because I wanted to ask. So just to flesh it out a little bit more, the general shortfall we've been talking about, and that we want to use the transient tax to supplement and other ideas, that really is specific to the general fund.
Correct. Pretty much only.
Right.
Yes.
And when we're talking about a budgetary shortfall or potential shortfall or getting skinny,
correct,
it's the general fund.
Correct.
So in that regard, all the other funds, are they, and you alluded to this, but to ask a more specific question, are they generally healthy in your mind? I mentioned the police, $3,500
Well,
a
the
year.
water reserve, the reserve accounts are different though. I mean, they are beneficial and they're important, but they don't have something pulling out of them all the time that you can't beat.
And do we have enough reserves in those funds for those specific needs?
No.
Right.
No,
Okay.
we do not.
Okay.
All of the fire apparatus and the police reserve
Public
that you
works and
couldn't
building reserve.
buy. And,
A new fire engine is $1 million.
Sure.
New police cars, 55, 60,000.
so the other one that
everyone-
gives me hair on the back of my neck
Yeah.
is that the building fund. We
Uh-huh.
are negative, and so the budget committee last year approved a $10,000 transfer. Again, this year, we have it in there to support them, and every month they make me scared that we're not going to meet revenues and expenditures and they do go negative, but I know a payment's coming in, so I sweat bullets knowing whether or not they're going to be negative or positive. They used to be in the general fund, so it was like the state revenue share, right? So I didn't have to sweat bullets over it because they could compensate. But because we have a third party independent, the state made us pull that out and put it in a special revenue fund and said, hey, you need to make this work. You need to treat this like an enterprise fund and you need to charge enough fees in order to make it. And at this point, there are times, we carried over $12,000 last year for the year before, but we made it, right, by $12,000. Now I was sweating bullets. And this year, there are months that we have been negative,
What fund number is that?
40.
Oh, this is 40.
And the reason is that, I mean, we don't have vacant lots here where they're building new houses. You know, most of the construction that happens in this town are, remodels and those kinds of things.
So we could ostensibly increase the building permit fees.
Yes. And that could help. And what I would suggest that we look at that, other people are looking at that, and I would suggest that that is something, because we don't have a choice. We cannot let that be negative. So what that means is we either have to reduce staff in there because we have a structural staff person in there, or we have to figure out a way to supplement through transfers or other things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because we have to provide that service, but it takes away, that's $10,000 we're putting towards the building fund and not $10,000 we're putting towards other reserve funds that we need.
So staff time is used whether or not it results in income in the building
Always.
permit.
Yeah, so when somebody calls and says, oh, can I build an 8-foot fence? And you're talking on the phone, no, you can only build a 6-foot fence. Oh, but my neighbor, you spend 35 minutes with this person and then 2 hours later they come down and you have to show them the GIS map and then you have to show nothing. You get $0 for that.
And there's no way to recover any of that.
No. There's a way to cover staff time, like if they have come in and they are planning a development and you sit down and you do pre-planning meetings and you have them come in and we charge for Garrett's time and we charge for the city administrator's time and we charge for that. But just general questions about, oh, what's the lots of realtors, right? Is this, can we build a multi-dwelling home on this house? Can we, just lots of questions like that. And some of them are obscure questions. Lots of wetlands questions. And it kind of bleeds over to planning, but mainly it has to do with they want to develop it. So it has to do with a structure.
Now, do we run the risk of getting more income here as the community gets built out and we have potentially?
Well, potentially no, because the expense we expense out, the large majority of it is for the inspector.
Mhm.
So if he's not inspecting, we don't pay him.
Okay.
That's one of the saving graces for Gearhart. Yeah, it's still expensive. If we had a full-time employee to take care of that issue and then new permits coming in went way down, we would still be paying that full-time employee. So essentially we pay 75% of the permit fees to our contract.
Which only leaves
Inspector.
25% to support a partial staff person.
Which is Angelina.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're really, I've worked with this guy. We're really fortunate to have Leonard as our building official. He comes all the way from Tillman. The guy really knows what he's doing. he's a pleasure to work with from a contractor standpoint. If you've got a problem, you know, he doesn't, it isn't like, well, this is the code, you know, it's like, well, let's see what the intent of the code is. I mean, he's been around for a long, long time and he doesn't need any ulcers.
Well, I get your idea, because to me, I equate that to if somebody puts in a public record act request or whatever you call it here. You say, let me look at that and I'm gonna tell you how much it's gonna cost for me to go around and collect all that information. They have to pay for your staff time to do that.
Correct.
And essentially, these people are using you as their researchers instead of going through getting legal advice, so they should be paying you for it.
And we do public records requests, we do charge them if it takes any time.
And if it's going to be a difficult.
For an actual
question,
public records request,
Right.
but if they're just calling for an inquiry,
How tall is a fence?
we don't charge. How far is the boundary line? Then you say, well, what property it is, and then you pull it up and there's like 50 things about that piece of property is why it doesn't have a house on it.
And my neighbor.
So we're at the point where we would need to set up a system where we say, okay, we'll schedule you for an appointment. We figured that'll
Yeah.
take
We have.
an hour, that'll take half an hour, and this is what it will cost you.
The problem is that you get 12 realtors calling you for a 5-minute question.
That's 60 minutes.
Because as soon as the property comes on, everybody's calling about it.
Or my neighbor's building a fence that I think is too tall, or can they mow out of the dunes, or is that fence in the correct position? You know, those are very simple things that could be.
But if we can
Well, correct.
quantify any amount of time, we
We
do
do.
bill them. We do bill them. And we-
I'd like to talk to you about whether or not we can develop this land next to the Neocoxy and the FEMA Pick'em zone. Oh, yeah, we'll set that meeting up and just let you know it's gonna cost
We
you staff.
establish a minimum, you're gonna be charged for 15-minute increments, or you're gonna be charging half hour or less time.
How about lawyers? They charge every 10 minutes.
Well, there you go. Well, I mean, we set the playing rules and everybody has to play by them.
Or 6 minutes, I think it's 6 minutes.
Because really, we have no other choice, because at this point, we're not, we're gonna have to pay for additional staff that we can't afford.
And a lot of the information is available online, a lot. So they just are choosing not to use it.
Are there other funds that keep you up at night?
No, building fund is my number one.
Out of the general fund.
Well,
As a
yeah,
whole.
general fund.
Now, will increases in the general fund by virtue of tax, the money that we have discretion over, could it be used to move it out, transfer? it
Right,
to-
which would be the goal,
Mhm,
to start back in a program where we're making enough money
mhm.
to fulfill our obligatory,
Right,
just standard of living things that keep going up.
right,
And we can still put things to transfer, because
right.
putting transfers, the goal would be to have this, in my opinion, to have $1 million sitting there in the ending fund balance. My goal would to be 500,000 in an ending fund balance, and our reserve funds to be robust. Right?
Mhm.
In the end, the equation is the same. When you look at the equation, if those two equal, we're strong versus having one stronger than the other. So that would be my goal.
Well, you can always do fund transfers too, right?
Yes.
The problem is that the base tax rate here is $1.015 per thousand. Okay? And, everybody wants services and everything else. I mean, PERS is going up 6% a year.
More than that.
Okay?
Sometimes.
But the revenue isn't going up 6%. So we need to figure out what it is we can do in order to keep up with the expenses.
Yes, Steve?
Yeah.
In Fund 79, on page 32, in the year 2024-25, we spent 217,000 change for capital outlay for the public safety facility project. Is that what we invested in the whole planning process for it turned out to be the $30 million?
Is that what you do?
Yes.
Just the $30 million design or the one before it as well?
I think that would have been the cottages, we didn't really pay architects, this is like, Klosh and the architects.
Right, that was
Correct.
what, so we spent roughly $200,000 to move that project forward.
Correct.
Okay. And then people complained that we shouldn't have spent all that money. And now they're complaining that we haven't told them what we want to build, we should spend money to get a design. Is that how this is all?
That is exactly
That's the
accurate.
Okay.
We hired
Okay.
professionals to
Right.
get input and to make sure that what we were doing was
Right.
validated and transparent. Correct.
No, that didn't pass, and now we're offering a different idea, they're saying, well, where are the plans?
Right. And we never,
Right.
you don't get plans until you,
Well,
Or at
even
least
then,
where the design?
even then, the $30 million project was not a full design, and that would cost almost $1
Right.
million
Right,
to get
right,
that
right,
full
right. That
design,
was
so
just
we have a partial
that
plan.
level plan.
Yeah.
So is there any merit to the comments that came in by email that, in pursuit of the city's public safety building, we're under the impression emergency and cash reserves have been drawn down to very precarious levels?
not from, I think it's a semantics thing in the sense where, because in this particular fund, we never made transfers to any of the other funds, so this fund did not support. If you look at the beginning fund balance in 2023, 2024, that beginning fund balance was in that fund, so
Right.
kind of like we talked about, it was in here.
Sure,
It wasn't going anywhere else.
but it's been spent though. So it's been
Well,
drawn-
now
it's been
it has.
drawn down.
Yes, but it wasn't, doing that didn't affect our general fund.
Right.
It didn't affect that fund at all in any way. But I think what they're trying to say is we could have been putting that money, but not easily into the reserve, other reserve funds
Elsewhere.
elsewhere.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
Any other discussions, items? Of the budget before we have to stay there?
And this isn't a ton of money, but, I can't remember how much money is in our account right now for the expenses for elected officials. I think it's $5,500 is generally $5,500. Our existing budget as of April, I think we get to the end of the year and we never use that much.
I think that depends upon how many, we did have a couple cancellations of some workshops that people were not going to, that ended up didn't go. So I think it's misleading. Where is my?
I just want to confirm that you still think that's an appropriate amount.
If anything, it might not be enough money if people decide to continue to go.
I mean, it's hard to go anywhere in the state, get reimbursed for your lodging and your mileage for 2 to 3 days for an annual meeting for less than 1,000. And so the budget is basically one trip per counselor per year.
And so in 23-24 we spent 5,000, in 24-25 we spent 6,000, and we have 5,500 in there.
Okay. I'm just confirming. I'm not ready to wrestle with you, but
Are those monies cumulative?
No, each year it rolls over to the beginning fund balance. So no,
Can't go to Hawaii.
some
And then-
counselors have gone on trips to see, like, maybe they have TLC tax there and not spend it.
Not our counselors.
It depends on what you.
I won't tell you
I
about
always
that.
think.
Whether you want to end up on the appropriate Oregonian or not.
So we do need to allocate funds. Does anybody like a break before we transition into that, or feel good enough to go? Okay? Okay,
So we're going into revenue sharing.
if you feel comfortable, I think we're good to
Think we're
go.
good.
Christy can put the spreadsheet up on the screen.
Yes, it's,
And then as you see fit, what we just do as a starting point, because from past experience, we've learned sometimes it can be difficult to get the ball rolling. Not much.
You guys can get any questions for that.
Yeah, our police chief need, and maybe our fire, do you have any questions specifically for them before we move on? Or they can be excused?
I just want to recognize, yeah.
We took a pretty good hit this year on our budget. For the police department, I know I'm looking at about 24,000-ish of materials and services. I can speak for myself on this. We'll make that happen. That's okay. I get it. We're gonna do what we need to do. However, as we talked about earlier with the vehicle reserve fund, that's kind of important. And we had to take a hit on that. Chad kind of mentioned this, to get our vehicles actually patrol ready. When I first got here, that was a cut into that fund. The laptops that we had to use to switch to our new system, that was a cut into that fund. We really will need some money in those reserve funds. And I know you guys are about to come together and determine what kind of money needs to go where, right? And I got some really good organizations in our community that deserve what they can get, and they are doing a great job. However, right now, it feels like maybe we could put that money into the reserves. I know that probably will not be met with smiles, but that being said, I had to say it because I have to speak up for public safety. So just asking it, whatever you can do to see maybe so that might be out to the reserve fund. Would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. But imagine that you get out for the fire department at the moment. They've got some repairs that they're holding off on that they need to do.
I was with Hank when he went to go talk to the rural fire district. They were throwing haymakers at him, so he wasn't quite in the field position, but they weren't happy. So.
Well, they're paying for.
They did tell me we're paying more, and I said we are paying more.
Not only do they pay us, but they also have to pay forestry, whether they have a tree on their property or not.
And it's gonna get worse because diesel fuel costs are,
Yes, right.
yeah, they're gonna stay as a.
So we just started out the spreadsheet, just doing what we had done before. We had 7 grant applicants. We just divided it equally out, and then we let the mayor's fund take the hit, or give it some, but not the same as the other ones. There is nothing set in stone here. We have $35,220 that can be manipulated in here. The budget officer put where they best felt like the money was to go, but you guys can decide how and when, how you want this to be distributed. So she has just put in the top portion, the materials and supplies, but you are welcome to put in move from the transfers or move from the ending fund balance. What I would caution you, if you take money from the ending fund balance, please don't put it anywhere that I might not be able to give somebody a grant. Because that's my cushion, because I never know exactly how much money we're going to get. It's just the best guess. And I would not want to allocate all I think we're going to get, just in case we don't get that.
Okay, can I throw out an idea?
Yes.
Okay, so, first of all, I'm thinking the people who asked us for money should get the most attention. Second of all, if you look at the numbers that we got from Helping Hands, Cedar, the Harbor, and North Coast Food Web, they've all got a fairly decent net income. What I can see. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The only people who don't have much of a cushion or Trails End and St. Vincent de Paul. Those two organizations are directly connected to Gerhardt. So my idea is those are the two organizations that we give money to. It's throwing it out there.
I've got $500 for each and every one of them, except for the scouting group. I gave them 150 and I gave 350 to the North Coast Food Web. But everyone else is $500, works out to be $3,000. And that's what has been allocated by the master of money. I think that's fair.
And you are saying everybody who turned in a grant application?
Yes, I am.
Not everybody that's.
No. Everyone who's got an application.
Sure, would you say everybody who turned in an application or everybody who presented?
Turn in an application.
Which the two you want to support did present.
Yep. But they also turned in an application.
Yes.
Yeah.
Show me how that's, oh, you're still making changes.
Yeah, she's making changes right there. So,
You wanna take the mayor's emergency off?
You didn't say that. You want me to?
It's about 150. You did, I was trying to make it make 3,000 is all. Are we there on?
It equals 3,000, but she actually allotted 4,000.
Right. So we just put 1,000 in the reserve. Is there a line, is that below what we're looking at? If we wanted the other 1,000?
This is how it equals out. There's 1,000 left. You'd have to put it in one of the three up here.
But they can move it down to recommended transfers, Christine.
Oh, down here. Okay.
Yeah, they could move it down there.
So what's the city reserve fund? That's 10,500.
That is, I'm recommending 10,500 to city reserves, and so each one of the reserve funds, police car, fire apparatus, and building reserve would get 3,500. I just put a placeholder of 10,500.
Okay.
But if you were to change that, it would change depending on what you approved. I just recommended 10,500 to those funds, those three funds.
So
I'd make it 12,000 and
So could we
make
take that?
a nice round amount.
Could we take that 1,000 then and move that to that 10,500?
Right, that was one suggested, correct. You can, at this point, you have the freedom to move it around. Later on, it's not as easy when we have to do appropriations resolutions later on. This is the one time a year you get a chance to move things between sections.
Yeah, but we don't want it to be 1,000, we want it to be 11,500 or 12. Yeah.
You're just trying to get it to.
I'm trying to get around and it's three, and there's three funds, correct?
There's three funds and if I had to rate them in priority, I would rate them police car, fire apparatus, and building reserve. And I only do that because the fire apparatus is going to take more than what we have. And the police have a better opportunity with the more money they get in order to buy something quicker.
So what are you suggesting, $3,000?
I put my suggestions on paper. The 10,500. $3,500 each, correct. So if you moved it over to the next column
Right.
at 10,500
Right.
below would be 35, 35, 35.
35.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I recommended, but that's only because Earhart has had a traditional philosophy of giving grants. We have an obligation where we have already put some funds in the community celebration and events. I put a little bit more money in there because I would love this to potentially see Earth Day be re-supported. There wasn't money in there to really do it to the extent that it potentially was going to cost us, but we had a lot of interest in it.
Is that the garbage collection?
Yes.
Freedom Day.
People really liked it, so I did increase it, but we also have 4th of July that tends to be, well, you know, you never know what activities are needed, and we have the nut mitts in there, which also is a huge thing for love. If you work in the city hall, you will, get calls when the nut mitts are empty. Every time. It's a big deal to them, so they just tried to look at
spend in dog bags?
about $5,000 a year.
That is one of the questions I had, that and the porta potty, talked about that last year. I don't know if both of those are that $10,000 material and services.
They're
Porta potties, 300 and something a month.
I will, so just, I think you told me the history of this last year, that the homeowners association said they'd take care of the dog waste bags, and then they stopped, and the city picked it up.
correct.
And I see our fire and our police departments needing the money more than people need dog waste bags. That bothers me.
Well, not only that, but I mean, when you walk down the ridge path and everything like that, they just throw them in the bushes.
Yeah.
I would like to mention something about that.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, I mean,
They leave them out anyway.
You know what, that's the
told me
worst,
this.
Krista? When we have a lot of people that are visiting our town.
Yeah. I would like to point out that the porta potty might be a problem this year, but if we're all optimistic that that bond is gonna pass, I don't imagine us having a porta potty out there after we remodel City Hall, so that might be an expense that gets absorbed or goes away.
the septic field here take this.
Are we talking, maybe?
I'll tell
Maybe? Maybe.
No, I can't take it, it's not
Okay,
operational. for
wait,
the
let's
many
get back to
hours.
state revenue share.
Yeah.
I've set my goal.
Thank you, septic is,
Yeah.
I also think, every organization that we support does great work, but I took the time to speak with both Chief Gregory and Hank. And I just feel that the 4,000 that you set aside ought to be going to support our police and fire instead of our local organizations this year.
I have to say, I agree. We are exactly on the same page. Several of these organizations, I said these are gonna be, I brought my checkbook because I intend to give them money, but I don't know that the city has the budget to give them money.
So I appreciate what you both have said, but of course, we're a small amount of resource to needy groups.
Yeah.
Including our own, but so my thoughts, if I was gonna distribute the money. I think that St. Vincent de Paul should get something, direct help to people in our community. And a small budget operation. So I think they should get something. I feel the same for the Trails End. They're an arts organization in our community. They're a tourist destination. They do a lot, and we give them $500. It's meaningful to them. So I would give this what Sharon said. I also actually think we should give some money to Cedar. We're the only, because they benefit our businesses, or at least they're very benefit our businesses. And we're the only municipality that's not giving that money. Seaside, Astoria, Cannon Beach, Warrenton, they all help fund Cedar, and we're the outlier there. And even though they have a big budget and they try to do without us, so to speak, they do service our community. And I think we should give them $500 just so we're on the books.
And I think an opportunity for us could be that they may be funded out of our state mandated TLT
Cool.
Yeah.
permanently, because I think that, providing that business support seems appropriate and for attracting and improving and longevity of our businesses. So I'm hoping that if all goes well with this, that it may be, two, that they could become a permanent line item in our TLT for their full amount of, I think, $3,600.
But in the meantime, I would allot $500 to them and 500 to.
So we're talking-
500, so that's $1,500. And the other groups, worthy as they are, most of them have large budgets with surpluses, and much as we like to help them, we have other needs too. So I would just more or less agree with Sharon on that, but add Cedar, and that would be my take.
I could be persuaded to that because Cedar not only supports our businesses, but it's our kids. You know, they do the things with the school where they're doing the business fairs and everything else. They do the internships and everything else. So they're actually helping our community be more successful.
And I think Cedar will provide more leverage for promoting tourism.
Well, not only that, but they're
Benefits, putting flyers out.
right, and they're also working with us every time they have a state leader come into town. They invite us to come sit down with them so we can get some face-to-face time with them about where our problems are here in our community. So I'm sorry, you are absolutely right, and my brain was in the right place.
Have a conflict there, being that you're on the board, so
Well, but I was thinking along the lines she was talking about earlier was that would come out of the TLT. That would be a no-brainer for the TLT money. But yes, it would make my life easier at my next Cedar meeting if I didn't have to go in like this. Because they did mention when we don't put money into their budget.
Well,
That's a deal.
I
Well, no,
agree.
I mean,
I agree with what you all are saying, but I have a little bit of discomfort in a process where we put out this broad swath here, give us your applications. And then people did what we asked them to do and did their presentations. And they go, oh, well, you just didn't quite make the cut.
Well, the city's denied for grants all the time,
that's the grant process.
part of the process.
Yeah.
We do attempt.
And
Well, I think we owe them at least a letter or something to say, hey, we couldn't support you this year.
So let me ask you a question. So is the mayor's fund, emergency fund on the, is it on the table or
It's gone.
it's gone? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I missed that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you did.
Sorry, Mayor.
No, that's all right.
thank you.
So St. Vincent de Paul,
We'll cut in.
Trail Bend Art Center. And Cedar.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. So I agree with you, and I wouldn't add a Cedar until here. It's fortunately, I agree. I would too.
I agree, those are the top.
For
And
total
I-
$1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that.
Police chief.
I know Scouting America, I mean, those girls, they come and put the flags out.
Can we give them $100?
Well, I'm intending.
Well, they won't be selling lemonade when they're here, selling it, giving it away and accepting donations for lemonade, so
They'll be okay.
get yourself a lemonade.
I think they asked for $250. I think that's what they asked for.
A donation of $250 for lemonade?
No,
That's for that.
Flags.
They service
Any
us, they
amount
put the
that
flags
is
out before they slide.
Okay.
Not to exceed
Not to
500.
exceed 500.
So.
Damon said it would be swell to be considered regardless, we'll be putting our flags out on the floor.
That was the group that I brought my check for. So I don't know if that makes a difference here, but they're gonna get 250.
So have we moved, everything except the funds going to Trails End and Cedar and St. Paul? Is that moved to the transfers?
So the 10-5 would be 10. That would change to,
The 13.
No, not 13.5, 13, right?
even. 35, yes.
Yeah.
That looks correct. Thank you.
Could we look at the bottom again?
Christine.
So the 13,000 would be divided into
Three.
three.
Yes, you want it differently.
Would the fire truck or apparatus, what we call that, would that be an opportunity for a levy? That's sort of a
Yes.
CapEx that we could put out there.
We've done that before, where actually it was, so anything in Gearhart, we can't go into a debt more than $100,000 without a referendum to the residents of Gearhart. In the past, we had bought a fire engine for somewhere near $400, ended up 5-year loan. Went to the people in Gearhart, they approved it, and I think it raised our taxes by about 20 cents or 12 cents, 20 cents per thousand.
Your top falls on the dust.
Yeah,
It was before.
yeah, it was some time ago, and that's how we accomplished it. Fire trucks are very expensive, yeah. I think this is a good plan to get us started, and we do have some repairs that need to happen in the fire engines now. That we'd like to do, and probably coming too soon.
Justine, did you say you had these 3 funds ordered in your order of priority?
Correct.
So I would get 4,500 to the top 2 and 4,000 to the next one.
I think that is an excellent distribution.
Okay. And maybe we'll get back into putting $30,000 a year into some of this is a little tiny.
So I said, so the one that I regret that we can't find is the harbor.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely, but their
But they
price
have,
was pretty good.
that's true, right?
The harbor was the safe house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right.
I think that they get an awful lot of donations. I know that I donate monthly to them. I was,
They have a surplus in the.
Yeah. I mean, they're resting utilities $8,000 a month. I think that's negotiated.
So I think we're at a point where we decide to recommend this.
We'll mention that in the letter.
We need to either move to recommend this budget to the city council or this, or if we decide otherwise, we have a meeting to discuss further, which I don't get a sense, but
Do we give you approval to support city staff to move forward with the formal city process and implementing the ordinance change? Do we do that?
You don't do that. If you approve the budget, it systematically says that we need 41,000, which we propose through a TLT, which means that we have to move to the city council to prepare an ordinance, but it's no action required.
Is it ever appropriate to have the budget committee meet at a different time of the year to maybe do like a special project, like have a work session on what are our other potential revenue sources that we can
Absolutely.
move forward.
It seems like that would be
It
the
could
best
be-
way to go because you're the most intimately familiar
Right.
with the money and how it is that we're doing it. You've asked the questions and so that would be interesting. Well,
I think with this type of a budget, it's critical that we schedule that.
But no, there is nothing that
Seems
prohibits that,
Because
it
there's
just
only
has to be a
one
public
source
meeting,
that we can
but
see.
it-
Right,
that's
right.
Just this,
If that's
like a
like a
regular
regular
section or anything else.
We've got to go back.
For the budget.
I mean, even if we just did one meeting, we could just, that could be part of the agenda would be, do we need to do more of this work?
Well, but if you're asking us to do bargaining after the negotiation.
double your-
We'll double your salary.
I'll double your salary.
Taking it under consideration, you're denied.
Never mind.
Okay, so I will make a motion unless anybody has anything else. So I move that the Gerhart Budget Committee approve the amended 2026-2027 budget in the amount of $18,793,793,504, which includes a permanent tax rate limit levy of $1.0053, thousand of assessed value and general obligation debt service, as well as approval of the amended Gerhart Road District proposed 2026-2027 budget in the amount of $399,329, with a permanent tax rate limit levy $0.0602 per thousand of assessed value. There is also an acknowledgement that if measure 4-239 does not pass in May 2026, related appropriations of the debt service fund and public safety city bond project fund will not move forward to the adopted budget column.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
So did amazing, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Good job, Carl.
So before I adjourn, all the staff, especially you, Justine, thank you for all of your hard work, including coaching me for getting us here tonight. So
You did an excellent job. Carl.
with that, we're adjourned.
Good job.
I mean,